Hey everyone. Seeing as how I have finally completed my script for my ZA Mega Dimension review, and we are finally getting a full-on Nintendo Direct tomorrow morning. I'll be addressing them both fairly soon. So here is this month's gaming vlog, which will be a mixture of what I'm playing, what I'm anticipating, and a few pieces of news. Just had to be, as someone who typically does not watch Summer Games Fest, that had to be this year where it actually started to fulfill its promise of being filling the void left by E3 5 years on. So let's begin. Let's get the disappointments and cancellation right out of the way first, especially in regards to closures, where even though I mentioned earlier that I hope that they could find the money they needed to not just make the game keep the lights on, it didn't happen. Where Nagoshi Studios has functionally closed down, and with their highly anticipated spiritual successor to Yakuza, Gain of Dragon, functionally being cancelled in the process. I mean, honestly, was looking forward to that one. I don't know about any curse between that and High Guard, given how other games revealed during the same show have actually seen released and success. I can imagine it'll be the case for other titles that'll be coming at our way fairly soon. So, on that note, as you who may have heard Destiny 2 will also be CC major content updates is this month. After one last update to enjoy, the game will be going to maintenance mode. Oh, so not a total shutdown just yet. But despite claiming otherwise, there are no current plans for a third main installment. Between that, as well as maintaining a marathon on survival. I'm not saying the third main game will never happen. I'm just saying I would not expect it anytime soon, if I'm being carelessly honest, despite the crowing of other people in my feed. However, the last one before I get into what I'm playing and anticipating is actually something I'm actually glad to hear is not moving forward. Well, it seems that Sega is no longer moving forward with their live service Super Game initiative, and with a lot of projects that were mentioned to be part of it are instead now being developed as just straight up of normal games, including revivals of Golden Axe, Set Radio, and what just got revealed, Crazy Taxi, which always I'm glad for personally. A Naturally, as a Sonic fan, that also means I have to have interest in Sega's other IPs they put out over the years, being and as someone who was looking forward to those revivals, I'm glad that they're not going to be live service titles, even with the a current foofara over for potential AI usage in the World Tour reveal, at least. I mean, I will say that what I'm seeing so far looks delightfully 90s, early 2000s, and in terms of not just the drivers, but also their passengers. Whereas I can already hear the Austrian music in my head already. So let's get into what I'm currently playing. Okay, so on my Switch 2, I did try the Ball Pit, or however it's pronounced, trial, mostly during the time I was at the coast, and I gotta say, I was never really vibing with it the same way other people were. I don't hate it, don't get me wrong. I just didn't love it the same way other people did. And even among roguelike titles, man, which I normally enjoy, like, I I personally don't have any major desire to pick it up again, and depending on my mood, I may do a video on the topic, might not. I can say, however, I am quite satisfied with the recent Puyo Puyo event in Sonic Racing Crossworlds, Worlds having unlocked Arla, on the free playable characters, and not only are the promised collabs with the Ninja Turtles and the Avatarverse coming in season 2, they are also going to bring in collabs with other IPs such as Godzilla and Neon Genesis Evangelion. That should be interesting how those will play out. Personally, I think of plenty of scenarios, and tracks for both, and though given how the game is only an E10 at the most, I'm going to try and resist the urge to ask anyone want some orange juice, personally. And that in mind, I am also working my way through the ranks in both Pokemon Champions and Unite, even if I made a latter case, as the Horizons event has had a lot of lag, grind, and spent even by Tencent standards for those latter two, who which so far, to me at least, not really inspired confidence in its connections to Wonder Voyage, which is one of the reasons why I'm hesitant to even start that arc so far. Or, personally, I would prefer that this spin off got its own OVA as opposed to being crowbarred into Horizon Spain. And I am also adamant about filling the Pokedexes in my other games, not just the Mega Dimension I'm currently in the process of reviewing, but also working my way through Final Green as well. Well, I actually had to go get a map for the rock tunnel on my way to Lavender Town. Still working through my roster before I face Erica personally. On the subject of the PlayStation 5, I have tried a few trials. I mean, apart from Marathon, which I've mentioned a few amount of times, and also enjoying experimenting with different loadouts and shells made, as I finally got the new caloric contract fulfilled to sell his contract with them, and I also tried like one of Baby Steps, which is one I've been keeping an eye on, where, where you are like a old older an adult hill folk who gets isekai into the Pella universe and has to. He's not just been out of the house though quite late for some of his life. He's actually out in the world, and you have to use very complex and hilarious physics to navigate him through these bluffs. If it plays like Hey QWBOP in many respects, that's because it has the same lead designer. It's also involved with other physics-based cult titles such as Getting Over It and I Am Bread, to name a few. Who and I definitely be willing to try more of it. They also finally put out a demo for Resident Evil Requiem. Um, I have not figured out how to access the Leon portion, if it's even there here, but so far, Grace's vertical slice is living up to what I imagined in terms of being a bit as psychological horror as it was as the supernatural, well, in the same vein of a lot of David Fincher's works, especially Seven and Zodiac. I mean, I'm also pleased that we're finally getting like a full-on remake of Resident Evil Code Veronica on the RE engine, simply known as Resident Evil Veronica. Given how it's not dropping until 2027, it makes me. I consider that blessing in the skies for the upcoming logjam of people trying to avoid Grand Theft 6's likely mammoth launch. I mean, the question to me is not if it will do well, but rather how well it will do. Who, who, using 5 as a barometer still blows my mind how it managed to cross 1 billion in just 3 days. When it took like Iron Man 3, they one of the biggest movies of that year, multiple months to reach that milestone, just like that. New month also means new who who drop of essential titles on PS Plus. Most with a nice little variety there. So gonna go in which order I personally tried them. Nick All Star Brawl 2, who the sequel to Nickelodeon's answer to Smash Brothers, can play with its own quasi Civilized MSA World of Light as story mode. I like how they got a lot of people back to reprise their at the roles of their respective characters. I won't get into too much detail, but they did find decent sound like of the late David Carradine for Clockwork, and and even Hartman, even with his very dramatic personal life, was as a set was previously connected to at all. Mm. Warhammer 40k Darktide, a different kind of FPS set in the Warhammer 40k universe, where it definitely did not have the best launch, but it's been improved a lot since then. I especially like how flexible creating your character and a backstory are, and how while it's not my favorite even FPS in the Warhammer verse, given how it came out on the same time as the excellent 40k Bolt Gun, which even the sequel, I'm definitely enjoying it so far. I've been willing to play more. Even as the universe is increasingly full of unclean heretics and tyrannid nests, sometimes there's no problem that cannot be solved with more DACA. The last one is an interesting inclusion, that being grounded, especially as there's been a lot of confusion over Microsoft's new stance on exclusivity. Though at least is consistent with their approach on a case by case basis, as in the next Halo is coming to consoles other than Xbox and PC, but the next Gears is not anymore. I will say that I'm pleased that there's a creative mode in there, like there is in Minecraft and other titles of its ilk, where if you don't want to go through trying to survive your own little version of Honey I Shrunk the Kids, well then don't. You can instead build in your backyard just like you were a kid. I mean, they didn't really have the all these fancy smart devices yet at the time, but I did think of some scenarios for when I left my Batman figurine out there and his cape got covered in moss that time, started growing it. Think of it as a countermeasure of poison ivy, kind of like that, at the release. Yeah. I definitely am willing to play with that sandbox more, just as I am eagerly anticipating one of the legacy titles, the triumphant return of the cult classic Rhythm X Tug Gitaru Man on PS2 Classics in the premium tier. That's the main reason I'm subscribed to that one whenever I can, the legacy games. And I'm glad that Sony's new plans to embrace that legacy as much as they can, and I'm still taking part of the milestones of the first two console generations, and they've even expressed interest on making another handheld, especially if it ends up incorporating their next system into it. Yeah. Now, let's talk about surprising smorgasbord of game reveals from Summer Games Fest. I already mentioned Crazy Taxi World Tour for next year, but we're also hitting a whole new Spyro game finally, and as what I was hoping for, being a platformer that serves a direct sequel to the first three games, aims disregarding the events of ones that weren't as well received, with Toys for Bob coming back to who develop it, and that game is entitled as Spiral Realm Beyond, complete with Tom Kenny returning to voice heist everyone's favorite purple dragon yet again. And we also have some pleasant surprises in retro re-releases where we have a Toy Story collection, and not only featuring in the actually pretty entertaining tie-ins to cool movies, as well as the Buzz Lightyear Star Command spin-off. I basically described that one as kind of like similar in terms of weapons to Ratchet and Clank 2 years before those games started coming out. And a full-on remaster of the game Titan the Third movie, which, given how good that one is, I'm not a bit surprised that the game got similar reception, and often go to counter arguments that every single licensed game has to be Basura. There's even another pleasant surprise of Godzilla Destroy Monsters Melee getting a remastered and even releasing mere weeks before GTA 6 does in November or so. I mean, that's definitely. Brandon's got a different target audience, and it's still a little of a couple weeks of breathing room, but still, it's definitely something to keep in mind. And it helps that the base game wasn't one of the better Godzilla games of that time frame. I mean, Smash Bros. Power Stone with Kaiju? Sold. Anyway, that'll be all for now, and I will see you all very soon with my not only my ZA Mega Dimension review, but also my reaction and thoughts on the first full Nintendo Direct that we've had of 2026, not counting partner showcase or individual games. Take care, everyone.